Hello again, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of Sportsbook Confidential. My name is John Sullivan, and I'm coming to you live from the FingerLakes1.com studios in Seneca Falls, New York. And this little show here is to help you learn and grow as a sports bettor. And got a great show for you today. We're going to talk about tilts, the origin of the word tilt in the gaming context, and what it means for sports bettors. We've got some good college football matchups. We've got week 12 of the NFL, and we have the 107th, I think, Grey Cup this Sunday in Calgary as the Tiger Cats face the Blue Bombers, and we'll handicap that for you. So let's move right into it and start by updating my bankroll. And it was an interesting week. We went 2-2-1. We started off with Baylor, and that actually turned into a little bit of a sweat. Baylor was up 28-3, and they ended up losing that game. But we had them at plus 11. They lost by 7, so plus $14 to the bankroll. 49ers minus 10, and they scored a touchdown on the last play of the game to win by 10, so that was a push and no change to the bankroll. And then we had the Colts and Jaguars under, and there was a touchdown scored with about 24 seconds left, or less than a minute left, that sent it over. It was one of those, it was 31-7. It was a meaningless touchdown. But that was a loss for us, minus $15. We had the Patriots and Eagles over, and the Patriots defense showed up, and it was 17-10 was the final. That was not even close for us, so that was a loss. Minus $15 to the bankroll. And then we had the Tiger Cats and the Eskimos over 50.5, and that was easy over for us. And that was plus $14 for the bankroll. So if you do the math, we had a minus $2 week. Not much change there. But that makes our new bankroll $461, and dividing by 30, as we always do, as we're selective sports bettors, that makes our bet size this week going forward $15 again. So today's sportsbook lesson, we're going to talk about betting tilts, and this is something that I meant to talk about last week. Our lesson last week was on sports betting leaks, and tilt can definitely be a leak for you, and we'll tie that all together here. But I'm actually going to start by talking about the origins of tilts and, the word and the context and where it comes from. And you can see I have written here, the use of the word tilt to describe a motion originates from the early days of pinball, believe it or not. For those of you that are younger, you may have not ever played pinball. But for those of you that are familiar with a pinball machine, you can tilt a pinball machine. So lifting or moving the machine to keep the ball in play, or tilting the machine, would result in a tilt alarm and a loss of your ball or your game. So those of you that remember pinball machines from your youth, or if you frequent arcades these days, I don't even know if they have arcades anymore, but if you shake the machine too violently, the tilt sign comes up and the machine shuts down and your game ends. And that's kind of how tilt evolved into a word defining human emotion. So the example, which I think is the transition here, is in some early cartoons like Bugs Bunny and Tom and Jerry. The characters would get emotional or shaky, and their tilt alarms would sound off, and you would see tilts, and the character in the cartoon would freeze up and stop, and that's kind of where that whole business of going on tilt came from. So now that we know where the word came from, let's talk about tilts in the human context. So what does it mean for somebody to be on tilt, for a human? If you are involved in activities requiring decision-making, tilt is a state of mind you must have awareness about. If you go on tilt, poker players are very familiar with that term, going on tilt. And poker is all about decision-making. Examples of these activities include games like chess or poker and trading stocks or betting sports. So What happens is if you experience tilt, you will experience emotional reaction to an outcome, and that will affect your decision-making ability. Your emotions are getting the better of you. And it doesn't matter whether you have money involved or not. It can just be you could be playing gin rummy or a game of chess or checkers, and emotional reaction to the way the game is turning out can cause you to act suboptimally and make bad decisions because your emotion is clouding your ability to make good decisions. So human tilt is having your decision-making process compromised by emotion. This is often a very intense reaction to events that are out of your control. Now, sometimes they are results of a bad decision you made, and you react, very poorly. People that are very hard on themselves can go on tilt for making a bad decision. And we all have to realize that we're not perfect. And in the sports betting world, we certainly have to realize that we are not going to win every bet. As a matter of fact, if you're hitting 55%, you're basically a god in the sports betting world. So that means 45% of the time you're losing. So, we can't be too hard on ourselves, and we have to be, I don't want to say unemotional. We don't have to be robots. We don't have to be completely dead inside. But we have to remember that we separate our decision-making process from our sweat or our enjoyment or lack of enjoyment of a game that we watch. So let's move on here to betting tilt, and we're going to talk about examples of betting tilt and things that can happen if you have a bet on a game that can cause you to react emotionally. And then what you do after you become emotional is really what you have to watch out for, because that's where the tilt can cause you, major bankroll problems or major problems in general. So a really poor officiating call can cost you a winning bet. And, this happens all the time. A bad call in a basketball game, a charge or a block. You have pass interference remember the championship game between the Saints last year and the Rams, and got the Rams to go to the Super Bowl. We could probably sit here and talk about 100 examples of that. But yes, if you're emotionally invested in the outcome, that could put you on tilt. A poor coaching decision can cost you a bet, and I can't think of a better example that came to my mind than the Seahawks and Patriots Super Bowl when Marshawn Lynch ran all over the Patriots. And they had second and goal from the 1-yard line to win the game, and they decided to throw the ball, which was intercepted by the Patriots. That's a tough spot. That's an easy spot to go on tilt because it's the last game of the football season, and somebody that's on tilt wants to get even. They want to bet another football game, but there are no more football games, so they may bet something that they absolutely know nothing about, like a NASCAR race or a WNBA game or something crazy. Because they're on tilt, and it's making your decision making is compromised, and you need to be aware of that. And also an unusual or amazing play can decide the outcome of a game against your wager, and we're talking about like Hail Mary or a 5 lateral kickoff return for a touchdown, or a missed field goal. That Auburn-Alabama game, where they missed the field goal in regulation and the Auburn player returned it 106 yards for a touchdown to win the game. That can put you on tilt, but that's out of your control. That's variance, that these things happen. Sometimes they happen in your favor. I had the 49ers on last Sunday, and they were going to lose that bet, and they scored a miracle touchdown on the last play of the game to push for me, and that saved me a bet. And it's not a win, but that saved my bankroll. It saved me a bet for a future game. So we don't tend to remember the ones that miraculously go our way, but boy, we sure remember the ones that don't. And when it's amazing play, there's really, you just have to, say, hey, that was a great play. And that's why we watch for these amazing, that's why they play the games, as they say. If they all were the outcome that we predicted they would be, it would be boring. And of course, losing streak can cause an emotional reaction. I have talked a little bit about losing streaks and very little about winning streaks, but some of the best advice that I've ever read about sports betting is you will run, at some point you will run better than you ever thought possible, and at some point you will run worse than you ever thought possible. And so far in my 10 odd years of sports betting with a profit motive, I think my best is 14 or 15 wagers in a row that I've won, and my worst is about 19 or 20 wagers in a row that I've lost. And boy, when you lose 10, 12 wagers in a row, your confidence is shook. You doubt all your methodology, everything that you've taught yourself about managing your bankroll and your whole decision-making process, whether you use a model or you just handicap. Everything gets questioned, and you just don't know what to think. How could this happen? That's how it goes sometimes. If you flip a coin enough times, eventually you're going to get 12 heads in a row or 14 tails in a row. And if you're playing point spread bets, those are basically coin flips. And you try to make those bets where you feel like you have an edge on one side or the other. So you're taking a couple percentage points over. You feel like you're taking a couple percentage points over the house. That may not always be the case, but the point being is that you can go on tilt from a losing streak. Anything that will make you question your bankroll management or your decision-making process can cause, strong emotions, and then making future decisions based on those emotions can be very harmful to your stated goal of staying in the game and trying to grow your bankroll. And then finally, tilt reaction may cause you to risk too much or bet too often, and that is a sports betting leak. And that's the part about tilt that I didn't talk about last week. If you go on an emotional, for lack of a better term, emotional rampage, you get too emotional and you don't think clearly and objectively about your decision making. You may immediately try to win money back that you lost, or you may place more wagers than you usually do. If I have a 30 bet bankroll and then I'm placing 8 or 9, 10 bets a weekend instead of 5 bets a weekend, that's dangerous. That puts your risk of ruin, your risk of going broke, much higher than if you limit the amount of bets you make in a week. So you just have to make sure that you size your bankroll correctly for the volume of wagers. But I feel like for beginning sports bettors, you need to stick to a plan, stick to a bankroll size, and start with small amounts. And if you lose money in the beginning, like most of us, almost all of us have, I sure did, just stick to a good bankroll management, and you'll always have enough to keep wagering. And you might not see those results. I've had certain sports like NFL, I started out poorly and I got better and better at it, even though I'm having a pretty rough November in NFL. But you'll see you have to have a couple of years of experience, and you'll see improvement. You'll see if you keep records and you stick to your decision-making process and you try to improve it over time, you'll see those results, and it'll be tougher for you to. You'll develop some stronger Teflon from the tilts, but it can happen to any of us at any time. But I find that after betting for 7, 8, 9 years, it takes a lot to really shock me these days, because you see crazy plays happen all the time. So that's going to do it for the Sportsbook lesson. I hope you found that helpful. And now you know what tilt is. And if I mention it on the show in the future, that you'll have an idea what that's all about. So let's spend the rest of our podcast today talking about football. And I cherry-picked some of the best college football games for this Saturday. And I've got here the spreads and the totals. And for those of you that don't watch the show regularly, The numbers in parentheses are my model projection for the outcome of the game. And so we're looking for value by comparing the actual line versus my model prediction and see if there's something that might be worth betting. So let's get to it. Penn State at Ohio State. This is the big game of the week, and it's noon tomorrow. Ohio State minus 18.5, 58. They don't have their suspension for this game. Excuse me. I have it at 15.91 and 61.26. So that leans over, and it leans taking Penn State plus the points. Should be interesting. A game, Big Ten games, especially, they tend to be conservative, especially if there's a lot on the line. So I don't really feel comfortable betting it over there. SMU at Navy. AAC's had some really good football. AAC and Mountain West, I feel like, have been very entertaining this year. Navy minus 3.5 at home. 66 is the total. I have it at minus 4.15 and 71.32, so that leans over. But I don't think there's going to be horrible weather tomorrow, but weather's not conducive for a shootout type of game. So we'll see. But, again, I don't feel comfortable betting that over. Michigan at Indiana, plus 9.5 at home for Indiana, 54.5. 8.99 is my model and 53.1, and that's pretty close. So I don't really see much value in betting that game, so that would be a pass for me. Texas A&M at Georgia. We have Georgia minus 13, 44.5. I have it at 11.93, 43.72. This is one of those things. You got Georgia ranked 4th, and I believe they have clinched the SEC title game for their thing, but for their division. But they need to, if they want to bolster their case for a playoff spot, I think they may need to run up the score a little bit. So I don't know. I don't know. That's Texas A&M has always been really good in garbage time at scoring late touchdowns, so maybe it's a backdoor cover. Texas at Baylor, minus 6, 58.5, minus 5.1, 57.85. I think now that the pressure is off for Baylor, they'll probably do well this week at home. It was set up so nice for them if they just could have won that game last week. And Jalen Hurts, to me, is the Heisman winner. I know it's going to go to Burrow at LSU, but boy, the performance he had last week, if I had to vote for the Heisman, he would be my choice. So this game is right on. I'm not betting on that game. Temple at Cincinnati, another AAC game. Minus 10.5, 45 is the total. Minus 9.7, 48.77. I wonder, Cincinnati seems to do well against poor defenses, and they have trouble scoring against good defenses. They got shut out by Ohio State. This is not an Ohio State defense they're facing, but it's not horrible. I don't know about that over. 45 is not a tough number to beat in the college game. Louisiana Tech, my alma mater at UAB. UAB minus 6.5, 45. Now, there's Louisiana Tech had some eligibility issues last week, and they're lingering this week. And my model took into account some of those players being out. I am not sure if there are additional players still out, but my model definitely likes Louisiana Tech. I feel like Tech has a good defense. I'm worried about them scoring points, but my model has them favored by almost a point, 46.33, so this leans over. But I feel like taking 6.5 is a really good bet here. Even if Tech loses, I feel like it's going to be a close game. I feel like they're going to keep it within range. And then our late night game, Boise State once again at Utah State, another Mountain West matchup. Utah State at home getting 53 points. I have it at 5.71, 56.82. So that leans to taking Utah State plus the points. It also leans over. I don't know. Boise State really hasn't put too many people away. You don't see them winning many games by 14 points. If that was 10, I would really like Utah State there. So we'll see. We'll see what makes my cut. So that's going to do it for college. Let's move on to the pros this week. And we're going to start with the NFL and Week 12. And we've got 13 games this week left. Start with the Bucs at the Falcons, minus 451. I have it at minus 5.06, 53.75. I thought the Bucs defense was going to be real good this year, and I feel like it's like one of those false positives because Jameis Winston has coughed up the ball so many times and thrown so many turnovers, interceptions, and fumbles that the defense is just on the field way too much, and they're defending bad field position, and it's not reflected in this. It's tough. It's not really reflected in the stats how good this team could be if it was not on the field as much. But the Falcons have been playing great the last 2 weeks, and you wonder if they've found something. I haven't really noticed. They've had so many injuries in the secondary. I thought they were going to get crushed by the Saints a couple weeks ago. And they've found, they've obviously found something in the line. They're getting more pressure on the quarterback. They sacked Drew Brees 6 times. Probably going to stay away from that game. Broncos at the Bills. Bills at home, minus 4, 37.5. I have it at minus 3.04, 36.01. The Broncos are not bad. They're a couple of field goals away from actually being in the division race in the AFC West. So I think they stuck with Joe Flacco way too long. But the Bills should prevail in this one. It's just a tough place to play. You need Josh Allen to continue to improve in his decision-making and not try to force long plays. He's getting much better at it. And I don't particularly like betting unders that low. I'm not going to touch that. The Giants at the Bears. Bears minus 6, 39.5. I have them at minus 9.47, 38.45. And boy, the Bears defense is real. And people say, oh, well, this team is 5-5 or somewhere in that range, and they're not as good as – they're good. They're not giving up a lot of points. It's the offense that's struggling. And obviously the kicking game is struggling. But this is a really good matchup for the Bears. I was just telling somebody earlier this morning that you find value betting on bad teams, and this may be the case here. I feel like the Bears maybe could get a defensive touchdown and, be all right, do some things offensively good enough to pull away in this one. They certainly should score points given the Giants' defense. So I like the Bears minus 6 here. Raiders at the Jets. Jets plus 3 at home, 46.5, plus 4.43, 44-47. So we like the under here, and the Raiders are really good at scoring late touchdowns. They've screwed me twice on unders on touchdowns in the last minute of the game. So I don't know if I would bet that, but the model favors the Raiders, and they certainly have a lot to play for, whereas the Jets do not. Although the coach, I think, is playing for his job. He knows he's not going to get fired this season, but he needs to show some strides, I'm sure. Steelers at Bengals. Bengals plus 6.5, 38. I have it at plus 6.93, 39.65. So that leans a little bit to the Bengals, but it also leans to the over. And I really like playing overs that are this low. It doesn't take a lot to score, 21-17, it's 38 points. That's, to me, is not a high-scoring game. That can easily be done here. There's not going to be intense bad weather. There should be no reason why that over couldn't be hit. It's not my strongest play on the board probably, but I'm going to put that on my short list for sure. Dolphins at the Browns. Browns minus 11, 45.5. I have it at minus 13.32 at 44.81. So the Dolphins have been scoring points. The Browns have been improving offensively. I feel like this will be a somewhat competitive game, but I don't think it's going to be a high-scoring game. I feel like these teams can prepare for each other pretty well. So it just leans under to me, but I don't like the double-digit games at all. I would think that if the Dolphins got to plus 13, maybe I'd look at the Dolphins, but that's a pass. Panthers at Saints. Saints minus 10 at home, 47. I have them at minus 9.43, 50.15. So the Panthers had a horrible week offensively last week. The Saints had a horrible week against the Falcons. So now they're back home, and they're playing a team that does not have a defense that is very consistent. I like the Saints to finally open things up. If they can protect the quarterback, they're going to score a lot of points. So my model says over here, and I tend to agree with that. So let's see what else we got in the NFL. We have Lions at the Potato Skins, and we have the Skins plus 3.5. 40.5, and I have it at plus 2.83, 39.75. That's pretty close. Boy, you wonder what to expect. I expect at some point during the rest of this season that the Skins are going to put it together for a game or two. And it probably when they're super underdog, too. It's one of those things like when a team is so bad that you just basically have to start betting against them in the pro game because you know they're going to. How many times has a team gone winless in a season? Not many. The Bucks, the Lions, the Browns, I think, did it. So the Skins are probably going to win one or two down the road here. I don't know which one it's going to be, but this game leaves me with no feeling. Seahawks at Eagles, minus 148. I have it at minus 0.67, 52.8. So I like the over here. The model likes the over, I should say. I kind of like the Seahawks in this game. But I like points being scored a lot more. The Seahawks have shown they can put up points on just about anybody. And the Eagles, I think, are going to bounce back after last week. And it's kind of a must-win for them. So look for them to extend the game and try to score points whenever possible. Jaguars at Titans, minus 3.5, 41.5. I have it at minus 4.19, 33.92. So you've got two good defenses here. You've got Jacksonville struggling offensively. I think they're better with Minshew, to be honest. And then you have Ryan Tannehill, who has been super duper the last few weeks, but is he going to regress to one of his bad 4-interception games? I feel like that's coming at some point. Hopefully it doesn't happen if they make the playoffs and it happens in the wild card game or whatever. But don't like betting an under like that. But my model really likes the under here. And the Jaguars screwed me on the under last week with a late touchdown. Cowboys at Patriots, game of the week, minus 6.5, 45, minus 7.91, 46.89. You've got the number one defense and the number one offense, I think yardage-wise, going. But the Patriots at home, boy, they are tough at home. So if you believe that the Cowboys are going to score points here and they're going to put up 20, that means the Patriots are going to put up 28, and that'll get you over. If you don't think the Cowboys are going to score 20 or 21 points, then you're looking at the under, or you're definitely looking at taking the spread there. So we'll see how that plays out. In this game, I'm really looking forward to the Packers at the 49ers. Niners minus 3, 47.5. I have the Niners at minus 4.41, 48.69, and Kittle should be back for the 49ers, which will help their play action and their passing game tremendously. I do like the over here, 47 and a half. I really like the over here. The Packers are going to score some points. This could be a 31-21 type of game. Not even sure which way it would go. But the Niners are for real. I mean, their defense is legit. Look for them to shut down the Packers running game. And it's going to be up to Aaron Rodgers to do his magic. And should be a fun game to watch. And hopefully it doesn't turn out to be a stinker. And then Monday night, Ravens at Rams, plus 3, 46.5. I have it at plus 3.37, 50.77. The Ravens have had no trouble scoring points. We know the Rams can score points. And the fact that their defense is not as stout this year means that there will be more possessions, which means there will likely be more points scored. And, you know, the Ravens could eat clock late in the game if they're up. But I feel like this game is going to be a nice fireworks type of game, and I like the over here. So we'll see what happens. But, yeah, exciting to watch. Those Ravens, they sure are. And then finally, also on Sunday, we have the CFL Grey Cup. This is the championship of the CFL, and it's a fun day for me. I always enjoy it. It's like my little pre-Super Bowl before the other Super Bowl. It's always right around Thanksgiving, American Thanksgiving. And this year it's the Hamilton Tiger Cats versus the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, and it's in Calgary this year, which is an outdoor stadium. And, of course, up there it's very cold this time of year. And the line is the Bombers plus 3.5, and the over-under is 52. And you have Hamilton is 16-3. They had their starting quarterback go down, and they had a replacement came in and really didn't miss. He got better as the season went on. Dane Evans is the starting quarterback currently for the Hamilton Tiger Cats. He was lucky to get the schedule in the middle of the year that was not very strong as he got into his groove as a starting quarterback. Toronto and Ottawa had horrible years, and they played those teams 3 times each, and that helped them get the shiny record that they have. And they're the best team in the CFL right now, but their record's a little, I don't know, overstated. It's kind of like if you were an undefeated college team and you played a lot of cupcakes. But they are the team to beat. There's no question about that. And the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, 13-5. Their starting quarterback went out, and they're doing a rotating quarterback system with Zach Collaros, the passer, and Chris Strevler, the runner. And as I've said in a previous podcast, the team that can force Collaros to run and force Strevler to throw the ball is going to beat them. So it's a big question about whether the Hamilton Tiger Cats can do that. And if you look at the kicking game, I lean slightly to Winnipeg. Special teams, I also lean slightly to Winnipeg. Both of these teams have explosive return games. And in the CFL, there's no fair catches. You have to return every kick. So it's it's a big part of the game. And the momentum is really with Winnipeg, although they played an extra playoff game. Hamilton is much more rested. It should be a good game. It should be a close game. I hope it's not a blowout. As far as the total goes, I like the over. I like it much better at 51.5. Both of these teams have explosive play capability. So both of these teams will easily score over 20 points. So if it's 28-21, that's 49 plus a field goal makes, 52. So if you have 51.5, that's over. I feel like even if the game gets out of hand, it could be like a 40-17 type of game. So even though it's cold and possibly it could be snowy at times, that doesn't mean the points won't be scored. Now, this is a championship game, and the game gets extended because teams are trying to win, and it doesn't matter if they're down 3 touchdowns, they're going to keep trying to score. So I expect the over to come into play here. So with that, let's get into my picks. And I'm going to take the old alma mater, Louisiana Tech, plus 6.5. Hope they don't suck too bad and not go on tilt. Minus 105 for that game. And then I'm going to hold my nose and take the Bears minus 6 at minus 106. I'm having faith in my model. I feel like there's a floor for Mitch Trubisky, and hopefully he doesn't crash through it. Then I'm going to take the Panthers and the Saints over 47 in the Superdome, plus 101. Very good odds on that game. McCaffrey should have a big game. Drew Brees should have a big game. I'm counting on that. Ravens and the Rams on Monday night over 46.5. That's not a tough number to beat. Those Ravens can score points. Minus 103. And then in the Grey Cup, I hope you watch it with me and enjoy it on Sunday. Ticats and the Bombers over 51.5, minus 111. 3-down football. It's our last game until next June, so try to enjoy it. So that's going to do it for today. I hope you enjoyed learning about tilts, and we'll have another episode next time with another sportsbook lesson, and hopefully we'll get into hockey and college basketball very soon. So thanks for tuning in. I'm going to play the outro music for you, and take care, everybody.